The bells outside St. Aldwyn's chapel rang with a measured rhythm, their sound echoing through the cool autumn air. Inside, golden candles flickered against stained glass windows, casting fractured light over rows of expectant faces. Daniel Ashford adjusted the cuffs of his suit with trembling fingers, telling himself this was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. Yet a faint unease crept under his skin, a quiet warning he could neither explain nor silence. From the front pew, whispers of admiration rippled as the music swelled. The carved oak doors opened, and Emily appeared in her white gown, moving slowly down the aisle. She was everything he had dreamed of, radiant and poised, her veil drawn delicately over her face. Daniel's chest tightened with relief, but something else lingered beneath the joy, something he couldn't place. As she approached, he noticed a hesitation in her steps, a rhythm just slightly wrong, as though the woman beneath the lace struggled with each pace. His hands grew damp against the cool metal of the wedding band waiting in his palm. The vicar's words drifted like smoke, solemn and practiced, yet Daniel caught none of them. He was watching Emily's veil, the thin silk trembling with her shallow breaths. When it came time for her to reveal herself, the pause stretched longer than it should have. Guests shifted in their seats. The silence swelled, heavy enough to press against Daniel's ribs. "Emily," he whispered, voice breaking with a nervous laugh meant to mask his fear. "It's all right." At last, her hands rose. The veil lifted slowly, catching on her curls before falling back. For one heartbeat, Daniel's relief surged, until his gaze locked onto her face. The chapel froze. A hush swallowed the crowd. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The woman standing before him wore Emily's gown, Emily's veil, Emily's ring poised to be claimed. But the face staring back was not Emily's. Her eyes were colder, her smile stretched thin like porcelain cracking under heat. Gasps erupted from the pews, a rustle of disbelief spreading through the hall. Someone muttered a prayer under their breath. Daniel stumbled a step back, the ring slipping dangerously between his trembling fingers. "Who are you?" He choked, though the words barely reached above the oppressive silence. The woman tilted her head and gave a smile that unsettled more than it reassured. And then she spoke, her voice soft yet cutting. "Daniel, love, don't you recognize me?" The ring fell from his hand, clattering onto the stone floor, as the chapel filled with the sound of his own pounding heart. The ring lay on the stone floor, its metallic echo still ringing in Daniel Ashford's ears, as the congregation shifted uneasily in their seats. He stared at the woman in front of him, the silk gown flowing around her feet, the veil now resting behind her shoulders. Every feature of her face felt foreign, every curve and shadow belonging to a stranger. Yet she stood there with the poise of a bride who believed this moment belonged to her. Daniel's pulse thundered. "You're not Emily," he said, his voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. Whispers ignited among the guests, traveling like fire across dry leaves. Some leaned forward in concern, others pulled back as though witnessing madness unravel before them. The vicar faltered, lowering his prayer book, lips pressed tight with unease. The woman smiled. It was too calm, too deliberate, the flicker of candlelight making it stretch wider than it should. "Danny," she whispered, the name falling from her lips like an intimate secret. The sound of it paralyzed him. Emily had been the only one to call him that. No one else, not even his closest friends, had ever dared. The hall fell into a silence that roared in his ears. "I don't understand," Daniel muttered, taking a step back. His eyes darted across the rows of blurred faces, searching desperately for someone to intervene, for someone to see what he saw. "Where is she? Where is Emily?" The bride tilted her head, her eyes glinting with something dark and unreadable. "I am Emily, can't you see?" "No," he snapped, louder this time, the sound cutting through the murmurs. His hands trembled as he reached for her arm, desperate to peel away the lie wrapped around this ceremony. The fabric felt real beneath his fingers, warm skin beneath it, yet the sensation only deepened his dread. From the back of the chapel, a woman gasped. An older guest muttered to her neighbor, "He's lost his mind." Another whispered, "It must be nerves." The atmosphere thickened with doubt, turning the weight of suspicion toward Daniel himself. He released her arm as if burned. the certainty inside him colliding with the possibility that something was broken within his own mind. Was he hallucinating? Had grief or pressure fractured him on the very day meant to bind him forever? The bride leaned closer, her breath brushing his ear, her voice sugar-coated and venomous all at once. "You promised me forever, and you always keep your promises." Daniel's heart pounded so violently he thought it might stop, the words burying into his chest like claws. The chapel's silence no longer felt holy. It felt like a trap tightening around him. The chapel dissolved into chaos the moment Daniel gripped the bride's wrist again, his voice strained and unsteady. "Where is Emily? What have you done with her?" His demand cut through the whispers, drawing gasps from relatives who clutched their pearls and muttered about madness. The bride did not flinch. Instead, she leaned forward with an unsettling calm. "I am Emily," she murmured, her tone dripping with wounded sweetness. "Don't embarrass us like this, Danny." The way she spoke the nickname sliced through him like a blade. Memories of stolen evenings, whispered promises in quiet corners, every tender moment he had once shared with Emily, all replayed against the sound of her voice. She knew things no stranger could know. "Stop lying," he hissed, eyes darting over her features, searching for a crack in the mask. Emily had a scar on her wrist from when she fell off her bicycle. "Where is it?" The bride turned her arm with theatrical grace. A faint scar rested exactly where it should, pale against her skin. Daniel's stomach lurched as the certainty inside him began to splinter. From the front row, his university friend Thomas stepped forward, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You've had too much to drink." "Let her be, mate. You're making a scene." "I'm not drunk," Daniel spat, shaking him off. "That's not her." But the bride's eyes glistened, as though filling with tears, perfectly performing the part of a wronged bride abandoned at the altar. Guests began turning against Daniel, murmuring words like unstable, nervous breakdown, humiliation. The walls of the chapel seemed to close in, trapping him inside a nightmare no one else could see. Later, when the ceremony collapsed into quiet scandal, Daniel found himself alone in the guest quarters of the Ashford estate. His reflection glared back from the mirror, fractured by candlelight, eyes bloodshot with dread. Was it madness that had overtaken him? Or had something truly sinister stolen the woman he loved? He pressed his palms against the cold basin, forcing himself to breathe. That was when his phone vibrated against the porcelain. The screen lit the room in a sickly glow. One new message. No number, no name. Just words that chilled the marrow in his bones. "You married her, but not me. Find me before it's too late." Daniel's knees weakened as the device slipped in his hand, the screen still blazing with the message that threatened to tear apart everything he thought he knew. The message glowed in Daniel Ashford's mind long after the screen dimmed. By dawn, he had made his decision. He walked into the local police station, clutching the phone like evidence of a crime too large to name. His voice shook as he told them, "My fiancée, Emily, is missing. The woman at the wedding wasn't her." The officer behind the desk exchanged a look of quiet pity before passing the case to Detective Claire Whitcomb, a woman with sharp eyes and an expression honed by years of wading through human lies. She studied Daniel carefully, her pen scratching against her notebook. "You're saying your wife has been replaced," she said evenly, "and this message proves it." Daniel leaned forward. "I don't care how insane it sounds. Emily is out there and that woman in my house isn't her." Claire didn't laugh. Instead, she nodded once, a flicker of interest sparking behind her composure. "Tell me everything you know about Emily. Not just the day she disappeared, her past. Secrets, arguments, anything that didn't add up." Over the following days, Claire traced Emily's history like a shadow trailing its source. A name surfaced first: Leonard Fenton, a man who had followed Emily for years, sending letters that bordered on obsession. The case file showed restraining orders, unanswered phone calls, late-night sightings outside her flat. But the deeper Claire dug, the stranger the story grew. Buried beneath birth records and adoption files was something Daniel had never heard before. Emily had a twin. A girl left behind, raised elsewhere, her existence hidden in silence. No photos, no contact, only a faint record in a hospital ledger. The possibility clung to Daniel's chest like ice. If the woman at the altar wasn't Emily, then who else could she have been? Back at the Ashford estate, the imposter bride made herself at home. She arranged photographs, altered schedules, and intercepted phone calls, weaving herself deeper into Daniel's life with suffocating precision. She smiled at neighbors, spoke warmly to friends, yet when the door closed, her eyes hardened. One evening, Daniel returned to find her standing in the hallway, half her face swallowed by shadow. She held his phone in her hand, the faint glow illuminating her fingers. "You won't need this anymore," she said softly, placing it on the table as though it were a relic of a former life. Daniel's breath stilled. For the first time, he wondered if Emily's past hadn't just returned. It was standing in his house. Detective Claire Whitcomb sat in the dim glow of the precinct's surveillance room, her fingers tight around a stack of photographs. Grainy footage played on the monitor, the timestamp from 3 weeks before the wedding. 2 women appeared in the same frame, walking in opposite directions along a crowded street. Identical height, identical hair, identical features. Claire slowed the tape until the faces aligned in eerie symmetry. She exhaled sharply, murmuring, "There were 2. When Daniel saw the images, his body locked with cold recognition. He remembered a fleeting conversation from years ago. Emily speaking in half-truths by candlelight. She had mentioned a shadow from her childhood, a sister taken away before she could even form words to describe her. Daniel had dismissed it then as a story blurred by memory, but now it bled into reality with terrifying clarity. Back at the Ashford estate, the walls felt tighter each evening. The bride who claimed to be Emily moved through the house with rehearsed familiarity, touching photographs, pouring tea, humming melodies Daniel remembered from their early courtship. Yet the tenderness felt rehearsed, a performance for an unwilling audience. That night, Daniel confronted her. "Who are you, really?" His voice shook not with fear, but with the exhaustion of being haunted. The bride's smile faltered for the first time. She stepped closer, her veil trailing behind her, her hand brushing the back of a chair as though steadying herself. "I am who she was meant to be," she whispered. "I'm the child they threw away. I am the life denied, the name erased. Why should Emily have it all while I rotted in silence?" Daniel's chest tightened. "So you took her place?" Her eyes darkened, the mask of gentleness cracking to reveal hunger beneath. "I didn't take her place. I reclaimed what was mine. The wedding, the love, the future. Everything that should have been mine from the beginning." In that moment, Daniel noticed the glint of steel hidden against the folds of her gown, a kitchen knife clutched firmly behind her back, the candlelight kissing its edge. His breath caught as her tone shifted from confession to promise. "You'll learn to love me, Daniel. You won't have a choice." The words cut deeper than the knife she carried. He realized then this wasn't merely a game of stolen identity. It was possession, obsession sharpened into violence, and somewhere beyond those walls the real Emily was still out there, waiting or dying for him to find her. The knife never left Daniel's thoughts, even after she tucked it away with a smile that pretended nothing had happened. From that night forward, the house ceased to feel like his own. The woman wearing Emily's face moved through each room with quiet precision, reshaping it piece by piece until Daniel began to question the memories he once held dear. Photographs that had shown holidays with Emily now appeared altered. Smiles were stretched, shadows thickened, and in one frame Emily's face was replaced entirely with the imposter's likeness. When Daniel confronted her, she tilted her head with feigned confusion. "It has always been me, Danny. Perhaps your mind is slipping." He tore through drawers and cupboards searching for proof, letters Emily had written, gifts she had given, anything tangible. Yet the more he searched, the less he found. Her perfume bottles vanished, her jewelry cases emptied, her handwriting replaced by the imposter's meticulous forgeries. Friends began withdrawing too. When he confided in Thomas, the reply was curt, almost dismissive. "You're exhausted. Maybe you don't want to admit you've married her. Don't drag Emily's name into this." Daniel's stomach sank. To them, she was Emily. To him, she was a stranger. The walls of the estate seemed to mock him, their silence heavy with a conspiracy only he could sense. One night, unable to sleep, Daniel sat in the parlor surrounded by the remnants of his own doubt. Torn photographs littered the table, one half showing Emily's bright smile, the other half displaying the imposter's cold grin. Candlelight twisted the faces until they blurred into one. His hands shook as he buried his head, wondering if grief and paranoia had made him blind. It was then she entered quietly, her footsteps soft as whispers on the carpet. She leaned close, her lips brushing the shell of his ear. "You always loved me more." The words sank into him like poison, erasing the last fragments of certainty. For a fleeting second he almost believed her, but Detective Claire Whitcomb did not. At her desk, beneath the hum of a flickering lamp, she pieced together files, testimonies, and the surveillance footage. The pattern stretched further back than the wedding. Missing women, false identities. A trail of manipulation that hinted not at jealousy but something darker, something rehearsed, perfected, and years in the making. And if Claire was right, Emily's disappearance was not the beginning. It was only the latest chapter in a far deadlier story. Detective Claire Whitcomb's instincts told her the truth was buried somewhere Emily had left for herself, a breadcrumb trail for the day her voice might be silenced. At the Ashford estate, she moved methodically through Emily's private study, her torch beam brushing over furniture until it caught on a section of loose floorboard beneath the writing desk. She pried it open with the edge of a ruler. Dust billowed up, and inside lay a leather-bound diary and a small recording device, its battery drained but intact. Claire's pulse quickened as she turned the brittle pages. The handwriting slanted heavily, words etched with desperation. "If she comes back, I won't be safe. She knows me better than anyone. She knows how to become me." Claire pressed play on the recorder, the static filling the room before Emily's trembling voice emerged. "Her name is Ava. They called her unwanted, but she never forgave me for living the life she believed was stolen. If anything happens to me, remember, she will wear my face. She will take everything, and she will not stop until I am erased." The sound of the real Emily's fear hung in the air like smoke. Claire's hand clenched around the device as Daniel entered the room, his face pale from sleepless nights. "She left this for us," Claire said, sliding the diary across the desk. Emily wasn't paranoid. She knew Ava would return. Daniel read silently, his throat tightening as each line confirmed what he had felt since the veil lifted. Emily had been kidnapped before the ceremony. He had stood before a stranger wearing his fiancée's life as if it were a costume. His chest heaved with rage and guilt. She was there, trapped somewhere, while I put a ring on that woman's finger. Claire steadied him with her voice. "We still have time. If Ava wanted Emily dead, she wouldn't have gone to such lengths to take her place. This is about control, not murder. That buys us a window." But her words barely eased the dread. For Daniel, every second carried the weight of Emily's absence. His mind spun with images of where she could be. A locked room, a cellar, a forgotten building on the edge of town. And in a distant, unseen place, a basement door rattled softly. Behind it, faint scratching sounds persisted in the dark. The storm had rolled in by the time Detective Claire Whitcomb and Daniel Ashford reached the edge of the derelict chapel. The structure loomed against the sky, its steeple broken, its doors chained yet trembling under the wind. Daniel's chest burned as he forced the lock open, the creak of rusted hinges spilling them into darkness. Inside, the air stank of candle wax and mildew. Shadows quivered across stone walls, dozens of candles burning in unnatural devotion around the altar. And there, bound to a wooden chair with rope biting into her wrists, sat Emily, her veil hung torn over her hair, her eyes wide with terror as she looked at him. "Daniel," she croaked, her voice hoarse. He stumbled forward, but a figure stepped between them. Ava emerged from the gloom, still draped in white, her hands smeared faintly with wax as though she'd been shaping this grotesque ceremony herself. The knife glittered in her grip, the steel catching the candlelight. "You came," she said, her tone both tender and unhinged. "Just in time. Tonight we finish what began at the altar." Daniel's voice broke. "Ava, let her go. She is my wife." "She was never meant to be," Ava spat, her mask slipping into raw fury. "All my life I watched from the dark, forgotten, discarded. And she got everything, your love, your future, your name. I only ever wanted what was mine." Claire drew her weapon, her voice steady. Ava stepped back, but Ava's eyes locked only on Daniel. "You'll thank me when she's gone. You always loved me more, didn't you? Didn't you, Danny?" The words echoed like a curse. Daniel's heart lurched as Ava raised the knife, her dress brushing the altar steps. In one desperate surge, he lunged forward, knocking her arm aside. The blade clattered against the stone as Claire seized her, dragging her down in a storm of screams and thrashing fabric. Daniel rushed to Emily, tearing the ropes free. Her body collapsed against him, trembling, alive. He held her close, whispering apologies into her hair, though the weight of his failure pressed against every breath. Police lights soon flooded through the shattered chapel windows, painting the candles in crimson and blue. Ava's screams faded as she was taken away, but her words lingered, etched into the silence she left behind. Later, as Emily leaned into him beneath the cold night sky, Daniel wondered if love could ever return to what it had been. They had survived, but survival carried scars. Trust had been broken, and the shadows of Ava's obsession would never fully release them. The wedding had promised forever. Instead, it left them with a question neither dared to answer: the end or only the beginning of what love becomes after betrayal.